All right, let's dive into the high-stakes chess match that's playing out in the biotech world. We're going to break down the 2025 strategies of three absolute titans: Illumina, 10x Genomics, and Bio-Rad. Now, according to HDIN Research's analysis, this was the year that really forced everyone's hand. You had to make a choice. Let's get into it. To put it simply, 2025 was a really tough year for the life sciences industry. I mean, after years of just incredible growth, it felt like someone slammed on the brakes. Companies that were once the darlings of Wall Street suddenly found themselves dealing with budget cuts, super nervous investors, and all kinds of global pressures. It was a year that really separated the tough from the fragile. And, this quote from HDIN Research just nails it. The days of easy money were long gone. It became a stock game, which really means it was a battle for a much smaller pot of money. It made every single major player take a hard look in the mirror and ask, hey, does our business model even work anymore? And for a lot of them, the answer meant it was time for a big and sometimes painful change. So what happens in that kind of environment? Well, it creates this massive crossroads. The old strategies, the ones that worked when everything was booming, suddenly they were useless. These companies had to make some huge decisions that were going to define their futures, for better or for worse. Okay, just take a look at this chart for a second. It perfectly shows all that turmoil we're talking about. See that blue line way down at the bottom? That's 10x Genomics. While the rest of the market, the NASDAQ, was recovering and even soaring, 10x, one of the most innovative companies out there, saw its value just tank. And this wasn't just a 10x problem, It was a crisis of confidence across the whole sector. So, how did our three giants respond to all this chaos? Well, each one came up with its own unique playbook based on what they do best. Let's do a quick rundown of who's who. First up, you've got Illumina. They are without a doubt the king of DNA sequencing. The best way to think about them is as the builders of this enormous, super high-speed library of life. Their machines don't just read one genetic book at a time, they read millions, literally millions of DNA sequences all at once. It's the technology that modern genomics is built on, and their machines are the workhorses in labs everywhere. Next is 10x Genomics. So if Illumina is building the entire library, 10x is giving you the ultra-high-resolution microscope to look at the individual words on the page. Their tech lets scientists zoom way in, past the tissue to see what single cells are doing. And what's really crucial is they can see where those cells are located. It's all about adding that vital context and detail to the bigger picture. And finally, there's Bio-Rad, the diversified veteran of the group. These guys are not a one-trick pony. Their business is split into two massive parts. One is life science tools, think a giant catalog of everything a lab needs. And the other is clinical diagnostics, which provides the tests that doctors and hospitals depend on every single day. This wide, stable approach makes them a whole different kind of player in this game. Okay, so now that we know who they are and what they do, let's see how their strategies actually paid off. It is time to check the 2025 financial scorecard. Let's kick things off with 10x Genomics because this tells such a fascinating story about the market. Check this out. Instrument revenue, so selling new machines, was down a whopping 39%. Labs just weren't making big capital purchases. But, and this is the key part, their consumables revenue, the razor blades for their razors, was up 3%. What does that tell us? It means that even though labs stopped buying new gear, the thousands of 10x machines already out in the wild were being used. A lot. That is the sign of a really sticky, resilient business. Meanwhile, over at Illumina, they were focused on a completely different story: recovery. Their gross margin climbed up to 66.1%. So why should you care about that number? Well, it's a huge signal that their strategy to get leaner and meaner was actually working. By spinning off their incredibly expensive cancer screening unit, GRAIL, they got rid of a massive weight on their finances. It let the true profitability of their core sequencing business shine through again. Now let's just put it all together on one screen. You can see the differences in scale right away, can't you? Illumina is the absolute revenue giants, even with slightly negative growth. Bio-Rad is that stable, profitable force in the middle, just chugging along. And then you have 10x Genomics, smallest in revenue, yeah, but look at that, the highest growth rate of the three, even while posting a loss. That's the classic signature of a high-growth company that's investing everything back into its future. And speaking of the future, 2025 wasn't just about managing the day-to-day. It was about placing some huge bets, mostly through buying other companies, that are going to shape this whole industry for years. So let's see where they decided to put their money. So each company made a really smart, calculated move here. Bio-Rad, they bought Stilla Technologies to make their position in molecular diagnostics even stronger, a defensive move to protect their turf. 10x Genomics did something similar, buying Scale Bio to add even more power to its core single-cell tech. But Illumina, they went on offense. They made the biggest, boldest move, signing a deal for SomaLogic to push way beyond their DNA comfort zone into the new world of proteomics. And this slide just lays out the two opposing philosophies perfectly. On one side, you have Illumina's bet, which is all about expanding their ecosystem. They're trying to build a multi-omics platform, one place for DNA, RNA, and now protein analysis. Then, on the other side, you've got Bio-Rad's bet. Reinforce the core. They're not chasing shiny new objects. They're doubling down, buying the best tech to make sure they're unbeatable in the markets they already own. So with these strategies locked in, what does the road ahead actually look like? Well, it is definitely not going to be a smooth ride. All three of these companies are staring down some pretty big challenges, especially from one particular part of the world. Yeah, the China challenge is a very real and very complicated problem. For Illumina, it was a direct financial hit. Getting put on an unreliable entities list cost them $65 million in revenue in 2025 alone. For 10x, the risk is more about potential U.S. export rules that could totally mess up their supply chain. And Bio-Rad basically sent up a flare, warning that China is making it way harder for foreign companies to compete unless they actually build stuff there. It's a massive headache for all of them, with no easy solution in sight. Which brings us to the ultimate question, right? We've seen three very different strategies come out of the chaos of 2025. You have Illumina, which chose to refocus its business and then expand into a brand new field. You have 10x Genomics, which is betting everything on pure, relentless innovation. And you've got Bio-Rad, which is relying on its big, diversified, stable model. So which of these playbooks, to refocus, to innovate, or to diversify, is going to be the one that defines the future of life sciences? Well, I guess only time will tell.